Welcome one, welcome all. Week 5 of the 2022 NFL season is just about in the books. We are going to talk about every single thing that happened on Sunday and preview Monday Night Football here on the SB Nation NFL show. A reminder before we get started that this show is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That's code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. As mentioned, this is the SB Nation NFL show. We talk about the NFL all week long, every single week. We're obsessed with it. It's our jobs. We're very grateful. We're very fortunate. You can listen to us, subscribe to the SB Nation NFL show wherever you get your podcasts, leave a rating, write a review. Those things make our hearts happy. You can watch us and participate live. Watch us on the SB Nation NFL Twitter page, Facebook page, or YouTube channel. Who is us? Well, our fantastic leader, Rachel Prevet, on the ones and twos behind the proverbial glass from SB Nation's Bleeding Green Nation. I am RJ Ochoa from SB Nation's Blog on the Boys, home of the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys. And joining me, as always, when he isn't moonlighting, auditioning for the voice of Mario in the upcoming Super Mario movie. That role, unfortunately, went to Chris Pratt instead of my good friend from SB Nation's Arrowhead Pride. His name is P-E-T-E Sweeney. It's me, Pete Sweeney.
It's me, Sweeney. I just want to get this out there because it's important. Happy birthday to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. 27 years young. Big Monday Night Football game tonight for him.
That's right. Who loves a Monday night game at Arrowhead? All right. What's it? Geha Field?
Please get it right. It is GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Everyone calls it that. And so now that you know it, I don't want you to refer to it as anything else for the rest of your life.
I give the Chiefs some props for making sure that Arrowhead stuck in the name, right? Because people were going to wind up calling it that anyway. Like, what is Heinz Field called? Like, those poor people, like, get no money. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's Heinz Field. Heinz gets all the free publicity when they don't even pay for the stadium rights anymore.
Right. No, you're correct. I don't know why they've changed it. But look, I think it comes with a truckload of money, like the Jalen Ramsey truck in real life. That's what you get when you're able to change your name like that. But they did keep Arrowhead in it, which I think made a lot of people happy. There is one side of the stadium says Chiefs, and then the other side says GEHA Field at Arrowhead, and not everyone loves that sign.
Pete, so. I didn't listen to a word you said, and we have a fantastic guest to get to recap Sunday Night Football. So hang on. No, like, we have some breaking news. This doesn't happen often on the show. So our sequence is going to be we'll get to I don't know what our sequence is going to be. This was not something we planned for. The Carolina Panthers, after their loss to the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday, have fired Matt Rhule. The head coach that they hired gave a 7-year $8 billion contract to ahead of the 2020 season. Matt Rhule out as the Carolina Panthers head coach. Their future looks murky, to say the least. As mentioned, we will get to that. This is literally happening for us in real time. I know a lot of you listen to and watch the show after the fact, but big time news right there. So not to take away from our big time headlining guest, let's get to him first. He's a very busy man, has a lot of places to be. I understand he's operating off of like 14 minutes of sleep after the Sunday Night Football win that his Baltimore Ravens had. You know him from Baltimore Beatdown. You follow him on Twitter at Kyle P. Barber. He loses to me at chess on the regular. It is the one and only Kyle Barber. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Matt Rhule getting fired by the Carolina Panthers?
He lasted 38 games after signing a 7-year, $62 million contract, and that's utterly insane. They were awful, and when your big coaching analysis is we really have to score more points than them if we want to win football games, that's just debilitating and sad, and clearly he deserved to be fired a long time ago.
Well, you know who has been coaching in the NFL forever, Kyle? That is John Harbaugh of our Baltimore Ravens. I have led the flock here on the SB Nation NFL show. I think that's well documented. Nobody has supported the Ravens. Nobody has supported Lamar Jackson the way that I have. I've been trying to get you here on our Monday show every single week, and the Ravens keep losing and losing and losing, but not on Sunday night. 19-17, the final score over the Bengals. The Bengals are going to win the AFC North again. What? Get out of here. This is the Ravens division to lose. All right, people. What was it like, Kyle? How do you feel?
Pause. They don't keep losing and losing and losing. They've lost 2 games. They are 3-2. They lead the AFC North. So let's not act like they're 0-5.
I mean,
you just didn't want to talk to them after the Jets game, which is completely fair.
to be fair here, I mean, they haven't really been defending the nest well a lot lately where they play at home, but they were able to get off the schneid in that sense last night. So congratulations to
Yeah, they were on a 5-game home losing streak stretching back to last season when they had Tyler Huntley and Josh Johnson as their quarterbacks.
That's right.
But yes, they were able to snap that, and more importantly, they were able to outlast the Bengals when they have been blowing double-digit leads, 17-point lead, a 21-point lead. Those were both at home, and this one started to feel eerily spooky and scary and, falling in line with the October theme of spooky. But defense held up well throughout the entire game. I was really impressed. Marcus Peters played a phenomenal game of football. Jason Pierre-Paul has kind of helped to shore up the pass rush, especially with Justin Houston out. And overall, the Ravens looked solid, and Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and, of course, Justin Tucker got it done.
There was the wild stat. I'm sure you've seen and done some stuff with, Kyle, that the Tucker's kick was like literally as down the middle, like as geometrically possible. I loved, I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen it yet because you were obviously very busy, but I loved his post-game interview with Melissa Stark. I mean, he's just like is the coolest dude in the world. Like, I mean, I don't know how you like. I feel like I don't see enough Tucker jerseys walking around. I mean, like that should be the case at M&T Bank.
There's definitely enough Tucker jerseys. I think it's some people make fun of it. It's like, wow, like the second highest selling jersey for the Ravens looks like it's their kicker, but it's completely deservedly so. He hit a 58-yarder earlier in this game, and that's not even talked about because he nailed a 43-yard game winner, but he made both of them look like chip shots. I mean, he's utterly incredible. I wrote every single year besides this most recent one, an NFL Kicking Crown article. And each year, Justin Tucker is, of course, at the head of that, being the most accurate. He also averages further kicks than anybody else in the NFL, and he's by far the most accurate. And as you said, he put that thing straight down the middle. If the field goal posts were a half yard, he still would have been able to split those uprights, is what it was saying. And I want to get to something that I want to pick a bone with Pete about, and it's that Mark Andrews is the current best tight end in the NFL. I am
the king. I don't know how often you listen, and Rachel, you can attest to this. I don't know if you want to pop in for a second. How often do I defend Andrews as far as he does not get enough credit when it comes to being among Kittle and Waller and Kelsey? Now, I don't know if he's top one, but he definitely deserves a seat at that table. I completely agree with you.
I do remember you picking him in your team versus team decisions there. And I called out RJ immediately, and I said his team was abysmal after the fact. So point to Pete Sweeney there. But Mark Andrews in the last 22 games since the 2021 season, 139 catches, 1,710 yards, 13 touchdowns. Travis Kelce played 20 games, 118 receptions, 1,447 yards, 12 touchdowns. So Mark Andrews has more catches, more yards, more touchdowns. He did so with, like I mentioned, Tyler Huntley and Josh Johnson throughout the game. And he was first team All-Pro last year. He was fifth in receiving yards last season. He was ahead of Keenan Allen, Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs, and every other tight end in the NFL. Like I said, he was spectacular last season. He was utterly deserving of first team All-Pro last season. And though Travis Kelce has had a better career, he has 6,000-yard receiving seasons. I completely give all the career credit to Travis Kelce. He has a better career. Mark Andrews has been the best tight end in football over the last 22 games, and I think that needs to be more stated, especially in a game where he was called on and relied on in the final drive.
I don't disagree with you right now. I think he's right there. How much of a drop-off would Kelce be? Like, I don't think it's like that far of a drop-off. And then when it comes to these guys, Mr. Andrews, who I love, he's 27. Travis Kelce's been doing it for the last 6 years. He's 33. Now, if Andrews could continue to do it, maybe they'll be looked at, one day as some of the best tight ends in football history. I don't think Andrews is there yet. Is he the best tight end in football right now? I think it's a reasonable argument to make, but I don't know how much of a drop off Kelce would be. Just like if I wanted to come out here and say, okay, Travis Kelce is the best tight end. Is Mark Andrews that much of a drop off? No, I think these guys are among the elite, and George Kittle can't really stay healthy. Darren Waller has had the issues. And so, I mean, I don't know how anyone who's a fan of the NFL would be picking anyone but Kelsey or Andrews. So I think we can agree there, right? Right, RJ? You're on board with this, right?
Yeah, I don't have an issue. I maybe I've slided Mark Andrews a little bit, but look, the Isaiah Likely hype train existed for a reason. I mean, like there's a lot of love, for a lot of other people, even on the Ravens roster, who in Isaiah Likely, hey, stretch for the first down. You know what I mean? Like, let's get, come on, let's get closer than what we got last night. As much love as we're giving to Mark Andrews, Kyle, and I don't want to take away from that. I don't think we're giving enough love to the Ravens as a whole. The AFC conversation, and Pete certainly knows this and benefits from this, but is always about the Bills and Chiefs. They're obviously incredible teams, and people are already, despite the fact that the Chiefs haven't even played tonight yet, fast forwarding. Can't wait for Bills Chiefs in Week 6. Going to be amazing. The Ravens get no love here. Their two losses were to the Dolphins at the peak of their powers. I don't know that we'll see Miami get back there this season, and to the Bills in a game that you could argue they should have won both of them. I mean, the Ravens' upcoming schedule, I'm sure you feel very confident about this. Like, hello, welcome to reality, New York Giants. The Packers stink. You're not going to catch a Ravens team, down the way you did Green Bay and London. And then the Browns, I'm not worried about that for the Ravens. And then the Bucks on Thursday Night Football, again, not worried about the Ravens like this. And then the Saints, and then the Panthers, who are ruleless, and then the Jaguars, and then the Broncos, and then the Steelers, and the Browns, and the Falcons, and the Steelers. I mean, there's maybe 2 losses here. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or silly, but this is maybe the 1 seed, and I don't think that people give them enough credit for that.
I completely agree. I think that, deciding whether or not they're going to win a game a month, 2 months out from now is a little bit, tough to say and stretch because the Ravens have injury issues. They've had injury issues for over a season. They just lost Marcus Williams, who was their highest paid, one of the highest paid safeties in the NFL. They paid him a 5-year, $70 million contract this offseason, brought him in dislocated wrist. He's going to miss, quote, significant time, according to head coach John Harbaugh last night. And that's going to be critical. He played every single snap for the Ravens up until then. But overall, yes, the Ravens aren't getting enough love. They lost in both games that they lost. They were leading all but 14 seconds in those games.
Combined.
Which is just detrimental because they couldn't close them out. In the Miami game, they were dealing with injuries to both Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, and we see that every single time that both of those guys are not on the field, what happens to them. They have the little depth there. They can't trust the rookie cornerbacks that they brought in Jalen Armour-Davis and Demarion Williams. They haven't performed well. Pepe played well last night, but overall, they get thrown against, and this young core that they have behind the veterans and these top tier guys just can't handle guys like Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase like last year, and Tyreek Hill.
But that won't be the case. Sorry, Pete, just very, very quickly. I think Baltimore's loss to Miami is better than Buffalo's.
The problem with the Ravens, and the reason they are not respected as much as the Bills and the Chiefs, is because they make goofy coaching decisions. They aren't taking it seriously. It is 20-20 against the Bills, who are another AFC contender.
I loved it.
You go for it on 4th down. Why? Because a book tells you no. You should trust your fantastic defense that we saw last night hold the Bengals, who are another potential AFC contender, to under 20 points. You should trust them in that situation.
The Bengals aren't the Bills. Those are different offenses.
Harbaugh and his decision making and over aggressive and stealing the thunder and the story is not something that McDermott would do. It's not something that Reed would do, and he costs his team games, and that is why they're not considered as seriously. They are as good. They're my pick to win the AFC bye. You can look at my Twitter profile. I have them there. That's why they're not as respected, because they make goofy ass coaching decisions, and it overshadows how quality this team is, in my opinion.
End him, Kyle. End him.
You have Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and this full offense. You have to go for it, which is equally strange for last night when it's 4th and inches. You're on the 3-yard line, and you don't go for it this time. And that was a whole section that I wrote for BaltimoreRavens.com this morning on my late for work, is that there was a huge reaction to the Ravens not, taking the points this time, when everybody argued they should have done that last week. Now they don't do it, and it felt equally the most strange decision. The Ravens are down on the 3. You should go for it. You should be aggressive. You have these talented offensive components. But I will say last night taking the points made sense after Lamar Jackson looked like he was struggling. He overthrew Tylan Wallace on an wide open deep shot. He overthrew Devin Duvernay. He was not having his normal traditional game. It felt like an AFC North battle. It's knockdown, drag out Donnybrook that just lasts the entire 60 minutes and somebody wins it by a field goal, whoever had the last possession. In this case, the Ravens did, and they had, the points to do so with.
I love John Harbaugh. I love his commitment to this. I love that he trusts the most elite thing on his team, which is his quarterback. No disrespect intended for anybody else. Lamar Jackson is that dude. To your point, though, Kyle, kind of a rough second half last night. Certainly early on, they felt like he missed like 3 bombs that like covered like 150 yards worth of air. And then his first completion that actually picked up yard was like a 1-yard gain. It was just really, frustrating in that sense. I do think this is a big separation win in the division. I mean, the Steelers look lost. I don't know what to make of the Browns. I know we all hate them. But the Bengals, the Bengals still have to play the Chiefs, still have to play the Bills, still have to play the Ravens. Obviously that game's in Cincinnati. I think this also goes a long way towards, like, I'm sure you've heard a billion times about how Joe Burrow had 941 yards, whatever it was, between the 2 Ravens games last year. Like, the clock has struck midnight for the Bengals. All right. The Cowboys made sure of that. You're welcome. All right. The glass slippers off. They're not in the, I don't know what the carriage is initially made of, the pumpkin or whatever. Like, everything is completely over for the Bengals. This is the Ravens division to lose by far and away.
I completely agree that this is the Ravens division to lose. And you see what happens when the Ravens have a healthy secondary. Like I said, when you're not playing Daryl Worley and Kevon Seymour as your starting cornerbacks, and instead you have 2 all-pros in Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, and you have depth at safety with Marcus Williams, you have Chuck Clark, you have all this talent in the back end, and then you get some pass rush out of guys like JPP. You have Odafe Owe doing well and generating pressure and getting absolutely mugged at the offensive line. You can see that the Ravens are capable of holding their own. They stopped Josh Allen for 213 yards last week. They then held Joe Burrow to 217 yards passing. When they have a healthy secondary, they're legit. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case, and the Ravens have struggled with health, and they continue to do so. That's why Ronnie Stanley is rotating in and out at left tackle. Yeah. They have J.K. Dobbins in and out throughout the game. They're waiting on Tyus Bowser from an Achilles injury. They're waiting on rookie David Ajabo to come back from his torn Achilles injury. They've dealt with the torn Achilles injuries twice to outside linebackers already this season in Stephen Means and Vince Beagle, which happened in week 2 and in the training camp respectively. They're dealing with injuries constantly, and that's the most frustrating aspect because we're tired of it as an excuse. And by we, I mean Ravens fans. It gets old and it gets frustrating there to watch as they do it. That's a complete and true one. I never said we as in Ravens, so I want to point that out. We had a pre-recording discussion. I'm just going to pull back the curtain instead of letting RJ do it. I don't like when people say we as in the team. We as in the team. I am not a part of the Ravens. I don't play on the field for the Ravens. I'm not we. I talk about the Ravens. Go ahead, Pete.
Quickly on the Bengals, feeling awfully like a one-hit wonder. Which
it always smelled like that. Both of last year's
Super
Bowl teams look like one-hit wonders.
Mm-hmm.
In Kansas City, I mean, as an raging, you talk about the Cowboys. This is a team that lost to the Mitch Trubisky Steelers the week before. I know it's week 1, and week 1 can be a little bit crazy, but this could slide for these guys. I mean, it opens up a little bit for them. Saints, Falcons, Browns, Panthers. That sort of needs to be 4-0 if they're as legitimate as they say. Kyle, sorry to hear about these injuries. I feel like you guys maybe could use somebody like Orlando Brown Jr. if that was a possibility. Lastly here, and this is my question for you. With this Ravens team, is health the answer when it comes to what else do you need to see for Baltimore to get over the AFC hump, or is there something even maybe more specific? Is there a trade that you think could happen? I know that the trade deadline becomes something that's a little bit more interesting in the NFL nowadays, or is it simply like, let's get healthy and I think we have enough?
I think so much of it is health that I haven't really considered a trade. I don't think they have much of the cap space allowed to do that after signing Jason Pierre-Paul, after making a couple moves and signing some of these guys to the roster like AJ Klein that they picked up from the Giants just last week. But I mean, like I said, they're waiting on Ronnie Stanley to be fully healthy. So in the meantime, they're rotating him in and out with Patrick McCary. When Stanley was on the field, they scored the most points. They scored on their first 2 drives. When he was on the field, when he was off, they didn't score. Tyus Bowser was their best outside linebacker last season, led them in sacks, and is also one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. I believe he was rated number 1. Maybe not last year, but the year prior and the year prior to that as well. So getting those guys back fully healthy is important. Getting David Ajabo back. They have rookie tight end Charlie Collier waiting in the wings. It's all just a bunch of just waiting on these guys to get healthy and stay healthy. Every single time Ravens fans see a player exit the game with injury, it feels like it's a season-ending one. When you watch Jonah Williams for the Bengals, he buckled, his knee buckled, and they were like, oh, it looked really bad, and then all of a sudden he's back out there with a knee brace and tape job, and you're wondering, wait, when that happens for the Ravens, the guy's out for a year, and in Stanley's case was out for 2 years. But when it happens to anybody else, it's always a shock. Like when you saw in the Super Bowl last year and Joe Burrow got absolutely blasted and was screaming, there's not a chance he's coming back in this game. He was in the next drive. And Ravens fans are just like, how that doesn't make sense, because when you get hurt, you're done. You're done for a year. That's it. And it's just the way that things have been dealing with in Baltimore, right. And it's been frustrating. But it feels like it's just the health stuff.
Well, thank you for the fantastic assessment, Kyle. Sorry, Matt Rhule tried to steal your thunder a little bit. It is what it is. Make sure to check out BaltimoreBeatdown.com for the latest and greatest in the world of the Baltimore Ravens. Kyle is on Twitter at Kyle P. Barber. Kyle, we bid you adieu, although I think we'll be seeing more of you as the Ravens continue to dominate.
That sounds great. I'm 27-9 against RJ and chess. I just want that to be known. Thank you very much for having me on, guys. Take care.
A lot of timeouts.
Easy dubs.
Thank you, Kyle. Have yourself a great Monday. We love you very much.
A tough record to chase. I mean,
look,
27.
We have a lot to get to. All right, let's not focus
string
on
a lot of wins together to get back.
Anyway, so, okay, we have a lot of games to get to, but we have to start, obviously, with San Francisco and Carolina because of the breaking news that preceded Kyle's appearance on the show. The Carolina Panthers, again, to reiterate, have fired head coach Matt Rhule. He coached 38 games for the Carolina Panthers after signing a 7-year contract with the Panthers in 2020. He went 11-27 in those games. Rhule, Pete, to catch everybody up here, was one of 5 coaches hired in the 2020 cycle. The other 4, one has already been dismissed in Joe Judge of the New York Giants after last season. The other 3 still holding. 2 of them are holding somewhat strong. The Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year that particular season with Baker Mayfield, who now is a part of this Panthers mess. Mike McCarthy of the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys. Ron Rivera of the 1-4 Washington Commanders does kind of feel like he might be next on this list. Baker Mayfield will be playing for his 6th head coach in 5 NFL seasons. These are all the little nuggets that are starting to kind of trickle out as the world reacts to Matt Rhule being out as the Carolina Panthers head coach and perhaps on his way to Lincoln, Nebraska to take over the Cornhuskers, who are in need of some help.
We had talked a lot about this on the show, and I think it's always a case in the NFL, especially nowadays, when you do have 6 or 7 coaches that are turned over each and every year, seemingly, like who's going to be the first one to be let go. And I think consensus-wise, we all really figured that it was Matt Rhule on the greatest hot seat, even in Dallas, right, where you guys do have this backup head coach waiting in the wings, so to speak, but it just still felt like, okay, there's a path for Mike McCarthy to do enough to keep this job in Dallas, whereas it just didn't seem like there was a path for Matt Rhule. The quarterback has not been good enough. They went through several quarterbacks, never could find anything that works. And this game against San Francisco, when you talk about just what the Panthers have been microcosm wise for a while now, was a clear indication of the fact that this is not going to be a regime that rights the ship. I mean, it became very, very clear in this game. And I mean, it was the last straw. And I think this was a long time coming where the confidence in Matt Rhule, it just didn't seem to be there anymore. And San Francisco never gave Carolina a chance, and Carolina offensively just looked completely lost. Now, I think the 49ers are one of the better defenses of the league, so a little bit of a perfect storm here. But what you saw from the Panthers was nothing. Nothing in this game gave you confidence that this team could be anything under what they're dealing with at this point. Baker Mayfield, I believe, might be injured. So this is going to be a losing season anyway. So I think The owners saw the writing on the wall here. They know what the season is going to be, which is a top 5 draft pick. Let's get maybe some new blood in here. Let's try to figure this out before this completely tailspins, and let's get ahead of it. And good for them to have the foresight. I think sometimes you'll see these organizations that stick with a current coaching staff and a current regime just because they feel like they have to and they feel like their money is there. Just read a tweet from Adam Schefter that the Panthers are going to owe Matt Rhule $40 million more.
Yeah, Matt Rhule's done all right for himself.
This is the definition of cutting your losses.
So my only thing here is I'm in total agreement with everything you said. Matt Rhule, it was never good. It was always bad, and he always I think he always tried hard, right? Like, and I think he always seemingly was coming from like a good place, like well intentions. Like maybe he's just one of those, like we say all the time, like, oh, he's a great coordinator, not a great head coach, but maybe a great college coach. We'll see if he does wind up in Nebraska. Like David Tepper needs to eat a lot of this. Like this isn't all like, it's not just like, oh, you hired the worst head coach ever. He chased Matt Rhule. Like this decision falls on him. He chased him. There was a story about him like stalking his like family vacation or whatever. Remember, he gave him the bigger contract. He almost wound up in New York. I mean, because he was from there, but he thought that was going to happen. And look, I'm not at all trying to exonerate Matt Rhule again, but what quarterbacks has he had to work with? Like, I mean, there's a relationship involved here that the head coach is one part of. And the Carolina Panthers, they don't take enough. The Falcons really took a lot of, heat for being involved in the Deshaun Watson situation. The Panthers were the very, very first team in on that. Even before everything truly, truly unfolded, they were all the way in on this. And they did nothing else. They gave, I mean, think about the quarterbacks he's had to work with here. I mean, it's been terrible.
And that is such a key. And sometimes you see these coaching candidates, and you're wondering when are they finally going to get a job. And Josh McDaniel comes to mind, especially. And you see them maybe waiting for the right situation. If you don't have a quarterback, you shouldn't take the job, because sometimes you only get one shot at this. Like, I don't anticipate Matt Rhule ever getting an NFL head coaching opportunity ever again. And that's why, like, as much as you might want to be a head coach, pick your spot, man, because if you don't have a quarterback, you're going to lose most of your games.
Totally agreed. I said this on our postgame show at Blogging the Boys after the Cowboys beat the Rams. We'll get there too. I'm not trying to take away any success that Dan Quinn had in Atlanta, but when he joined the Falcons, Matt Ryan was there, and not this current Matt Ryan. I mean, like prime MVP right. Matt Ryan. It's a lot of an easier mountain to climb if you've got that piece in place already. And like even Mike McCarthy, and I know that they're winning right now without him, but like shows up and you've got Dak Prescott. Think about the teams that I just listed off that hired new head coaches. Joe Judge, there was not a franchise quarterback in place. I don't care what you believe about Daniel Jones. Sorry to your G-man, Pete. Obviously, Ron Rivera has struggled, and he'll probably be dismissed, and they've had quarterback issues as well. Kevin Stefanski did kind of have a franchise quarterback in Baker Mayfield for the one season of success, so that's a unique situation in and of itself. But we've got a lot of games to get to, and we're already kind of halfway through our episode. Are you ready to kind of buckle up and fly?
Let's fly. Yeah.
Okay. So we've touched on Ravens, Bengals. We've touched on Panthers, Niners. Now, the Thursday night football game was a disaster. Let's try to go in as much chronological order as we can. The New York Giants, Pete, shout out once again to your Giants, got to 4-1 with a big time dub all the way across the pond in London. Jon Snow was in attendance. Didn't matter. Didn't help out the Green Bay Packers, the people from the North, the Kings of the North, whatever. The Packers now 3-2 after a very, very embarrassing loss. Their first over in London.
I don't understand how the New York Giants are 4-1. This is weird. Not a team that shouldn't be that should be 4-1, right? Like I get what the Cowboys are doing because they have the rest of the pieces in place, and so you put a serviceable quarterback in there, and it's surprising, but like you can at least make it make sense in your head. The Giants winning, even though their wins are against the lowly Panthers, who everyone in the league should now be beating the Panthers, the Tennessee Titans, who've been up and down, the Bears stink, but the Packers win makes you think like maybe what they're doing and Brian Dable is.
It says more to me about the Packers than the Giants. Not sorry, but like go ahead.
No, but like at some point, how many more weeks do we need to be like, well, yeah, the Giants are 6-1, but they're not all that good. Like, how many wins is
this week against the Ravens? The one we just talked about with Kyle. Like, that's the true, like, okay, show us what you got. They lost to the Cowboys to the point we're kind of talking about here.
I think when you see the Giants, and we just talked about a little bit about the coaching, like the coaching does matter. Like sometimes coaches are hyped up like Matt Rhule, and it's all hype. Sometimes coaches are hyped up like Brian Dable, and it's real. And I think that's what you're seeing. And I think they are really, really helped by the fact that Saquon is somehow back to being the best running back in football. And you can win like that. You can win like that. And in ways like this, where you kind of try to do the ball control thing. And anyway, to the Packers side of this, you're right. And I listened to Aaron Rodgers after this game, and like, I don't know what he's doing. Like, I don't know who taught him how to be a leader of a football team, because he's out there and he's sort of throwing people under the bus. He's saying words have all this deeper meaning, and you got to trust the universe. And I believe he was calling out Jair Alexander to say, like, we might lose next week. He's like, I'm not going to say we might lose. We lost today. And I just, it's so clearly there's the Green Bay Packers organization, and there's Aaron Rodgers, who, like, you know, it's like a tag in the playground where he's got like one toe on the base and like just doesn't even really want to be part of it anymore. And there is no way that team with that mentality of the quarterback can break through and finally get to the Super Bowl, which has eluded them for the past couple of years. And the vibes are bad. This is a bad loss, and it feels like the first of many bad losses in what's going to be a Packers fall off. We thought the Arizona Cardinals would be the easy pick to like fall off and maybe not miss the postseason. And that, you know, that might still happen. But I think this one is kind of coming out of the woodwork for us, where like I could really start to see a angle where the Packers even just miss the postseason entirely.
I saw a reply to a tweet from Justice Mosqueda, who does a great job running Acme Packing Company around here at SB Nation. The reply, I don't know who tweeted it, but somebody, you know, Justice tweeted something about Aaron Rodgers or something. And the reply said, imagine if he hadn't found inner peace, like how bad this would be. Like you know, like it was really, really funny. Right. And to your point, just quickly before the Giants side of this for me, so the Packers are 2-3 now, right? You know, sort of, and keep in mind, they've already got 3 losses. Today's October 10th. They only have had 3 losses every season under, you know, under Matt LaFleur. So like that seems to be something that's going to break this season. But these are their next. Let's just take you through Thanksgiving, I guess, for them. So they're 2-3. So I'd just like to give, you know, the win or loss, the Jets at Lambeau Field on Sunday. Definitely more interesting than it seemed, but probably a win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then Washington, probably win, get above 500, right? The Bills in Buffalo, Bills Mafia, easy loss. At Detroit after that, like, whoa, you know, could be tough. And then the Cowboys at Lambeau Field, Mike McCarthy's return. I actually saw Justice tweeted, like, the season's over, just beat McCarthy. Like, that's, you know, like that's maybe like when Aaron Rodgers like truly goes off. Then on Thursday Night Football, they host the Titans, and then they're at Philly. I mean, they should get these games, but you could see them losing to the Jets or Commanders or Lions. Like, I don't think it's a given anymore for these Packers. I really don't. My thoughts on the Giants and BLG, and I'll touch on them more on the mixtape this week. But I don't think, like, it's so maybe disingenuous to say like frauds, worst 4-1 team ever. I still don't think they're a good team, but I do think this is the year you want if you're a Giants fan. Like, I think the Giants rebuild, so to speak, is happening faster than the Lions, right? Like, you clearly have the right head coach, and that matters so much. You have the foundation you can build. I don't know what you're going to do with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, but just enjoy the ride. The Mets are out, so what else you got? I mean, because the Yankees are going to be out pretty soon. So you know, this is what you need to see. Like, this was the best Giants win in I don't know how long. Like, this was an amazing, even though it was like a down Packers team, this was an awesome victory for them. But let's move on. We have a lot. Hurry up, Pete. Hurry up. Come on.
Really quickly. I cover Kansas City. I have New York roots. New York football in general, Giants and Jets, have been terrible for 10 years. And suddenly you have a 4-1 Giants team and a 3-1 Jets team. And I got to imagine one of these teams will make the playoffs. So I think the league is better when at least one of these New York teams are in the mix. And so we'll see if one of them can emerge.
These vagabond shoes. The Buffalo Bills could have won without shoes. 38-3. They were 14-point favorites, covered it rather easily against Kenny Pickett in his first start for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Josh Allen had something like 4,000 yards in the first half of this game. Gabe Davis, we finally got the Gabe Davis game. You know, we'd kind of been waiting on it. 3 catches, 2 of them for touchdowns, 171 yards, kind of a Randy Moss sort of stat line. Stephon Diggs also a 100-yard game, also a touchdown. Khalil Shakir, the rookie out of Boise State, caught his first career touchdown. Dalvin Cook's little brother had a rushing touchdown. This was just like you've had a lot of these games, obviously, covering the Chiefs, just like a party, right? Like everybody enjoying, like it's, hey, he got his, whatever, just checking things off. The Buffalo Bills defense stymied Kenny Pickett, had one interception, threw the ball 52 times. Not exactly a great recipe for a rookie quarterback. Steelers now 1-4. It does seem like the Packers are going to lose more than 3 games. Mike Tomlin is headed for a record below 500 this year.
Yeah, I can make my points really quick about this game. This looked like a Super Bowl contender versus someone that is in the beginning stages, ground zero of their rebuild. That's exactly how it played out. A lot of times you'll see teams lose bad games. Like a team like the Bills loses to the Steelers, and then they'll come out and say, well, yeah, we were pretty injured in this game. The Bills had a couple injuries in this game. McKenzie, Poyer was out, Dawson Knox, et cetera, et cetera. They still roll because they're a good football team. They're well built. They're ready for this. They're here for this. The Pittsburgh Steelers season this year is about getting Kenny Pickett reps, and that started on Sunday, and you let him play the entire year. You're probably finishing about 5-12, whatever. Continue to surround him with talent. At least you find out if he's the guy or not.
My only thing here is shout out to Jay Spence, who was on the show last week, because this was what we all kind of said, right? Okay, Bills, don't be looking ahead, don't kind of fall into this trap game, whatever. Just go out and vanquish the Steelers and then get ready for the Chiefs. So that is very exciting. Up next, Pete, the LA Chargers, who everybody thought was going to win the AFC West because they got cool uniforms and they love to go for it, and they're so much fun. They squeaked out an embarrassing win. What's Cleveland? Like what is Cleveland? The what city? Like what is its nickname? Like
Mistake by the Lake.
Okay. 30-28, the final score.
That's what it is.
I'm not denying that or saying you're a liar. I just was confused by it. Stats locked this game up on the Friday show here on the SB Nation NFL show. Chargers could not cover. It's a push. I think that's a loss because it's supposed to be a lock of the week, like supposed to get you money. 30-28, the final score, although Brandon Staley almost ensured by himself that it was going to be 31-30 Browns in the final end, but Cade York missed the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot to say, I think, about this one. The Chargers need to win games like this and in more convincing fashion for us to really, I think, take them seriously as someone who can threaten the Chiefs for the AFC West. We know that there's at least one team that is definitely not, and I'm not talking about the Las Vegas Raiders who have one win and play the Chiefs tonight. And so I think the Chargers can be the other team in this mix, but they got to play a more consistent 60, and I don't know if that's happening yet. They were able to get the win, so at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And covering Andy Reid, he's always like, there's parity in the league. Sometimes you get upset by the Indianapolis Colts because that's football, yada, yada. They're able to get the win. Cleveland is trying to hold down the fort here until Deshaun Watson can take over, and then we'll see what their true ceiling is. And tough loss to get here because they were up in this game a little bit late and ended up losing on the field goal. And so we'll see what happens with Cleveland. The scary thing about Cleveland is they have all the surrounding pieces of what would be a team that can make real noise in the playoffs. And they're about to get the last time we saw a top 5 quarterback. We'll see, but it'll be interesting. The Chargers hanging on to having a shot in this division, but it doesn't seem like they're a better team than the Kansas City Chiefs, at least in my view.
A few things quickly from me. I think I've told you before, it's taken me a long time. Got a busy life, got a baby, stuff like that. But I'm on my first watch through ever of Seinfeld. So I'm at season 8, watched a couple episodes late Saturday night, finally saw the yada yada episode. You used that. I had never seen that before. So that was kind of cool. So shout out to me.
Yada yada.
Second thing here.
Yippee-ki-yay, right?
Yeah. You mentioned, I agree with you from our discussion earlier that Saquon Barkley is playing like the best running back in the NFL right now. But numbers 2 and 3 are Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler. This game was wild as far as running back production. Nick Chubb on the ground, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler had 173 yards and a touchdown. Got caught shy of the goal line, by the way, on another. And he had a receiving touchdown to boot.
There are times. I felt like this in previous seasons. I think we've talked about this on the show where we have said Nick Chubb at times looks like very clearly the best running back in the league, but it's not week in and week out. And I think he's overshadowed a little bit, not overshadowed, but has to share the limelight with Kareem Hunt, which I think hurts him in that sense. Like he's not just like this guy that gets all the carries. And then to that same point on the other side with Austin Eckler, I saw a tweet this morning. I don't have the exact thing up, but it gets about 60% of the snaps and is the number 2 running back in what would be like half PPR fantasy, like whatever, it's fantasy football. But that just tells you, like, God, imagine if Eckler was the type of guy that was playing the whole game like a Jonathan Taylor, like a Christian McCaffrey. What?
Well, you
would
could
he have?
argue that he
25
wouldn't be that guy. Like right, like
2,500
that's
yards.
but that's
I don't
why
know.
like that's why he's like is healthy.
You're saying
right?
you're saying that goes into it. Like he's he's more fresh because
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like
he's not playing as much.
we've seen that. Like Jonathan Taylor didn't play last week. You know what I mean? Like there's a battle of attrition in the NFL. What did you make of Brandon Staley's decision quickly before we wrap up this game? So the situation, it's 4th and short, near midfield, under a minute left. The Browns don't have any timeouts. The Chargers are up by 2, decides to go for it. The broadcast called it 4th and 2. I believe the exact measurement was like 1.7 yards, so it's technically closer to that.
See,
there were different models that favored going for it or punting. So there was some discourse here.
We have variations of of this conversation so often on the show, and like I I hate that there is such a black and white. Like you got to be for analytics or against it, and
you got to be married, right? You can't. Yeah.
Analytics gets confused, I think, with aggressiveness, right? Because that you can be pro analytics and not think that like every single situation you go for it. There has to be some feel. Like this particular one, go win the game. I don't dislike this decision, right? Like, but there are other decisions, and not to go back to what we were talking about with Kyle, but like when you have an opportunity to take the lead and put your defense on the field, and the worst that can happen is maybe overtime. Yeah, I mean, maybe don't go with the book for a second.
It's kind of, to me, it's like I know you do a lot of like fantasy and wagering, things like that. Like there are different like
models.
Well, there are different like points of data you can read and like suggested things, right? Whatever. And so like I'm fine if you want to take all that, but you don't have to follow it as if it's gospel. Right? Like to your point, like take it, evaluate. It's like this makes sense. You know what? Like I understand that like they're a proponent for this line, this bet, this whatever, this prop, but like that just feels a little bit off to me. And like similarly, like there's another prop or whatever that I like that they're maybe a little bit down on. Like there is a sector of feel. I do understand the point that you have to, like, you got to live and die by it. Like I get the philosophy of that, but to your point, I mean, I disagree with some. I'm pro analytics, pro aggression. I did not like, as a different example, the way Mike McCarthy handled the end of the first half against the Giants when the Cowboys were aggressive and missed a field goal themselves. I kind of like this decision, and I get that it's hindsight to say we'll have a better play call. It's like, well, dude, if Austin Eckler is picking up like 1,000 yards, maybe go there. But I don't know. Let's move on though. The Houston Texans defeated the Jags. This is a really bad loss for the Jacksonville Jaguars, 13-6. I saw, Pete, I don't know if you've seen this. The Houston Texans, since Christmas Day, this is from Peter King's write-up, since Christmas Day 2019, the Houston Texans are 5-0 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are 4-28-1 against everybody else. We talk so much and bag on the Colts about the Jaguars owning them. Well, the Texans own them. I mean, this is really embarrassing. Like, and Stats loves to talk about this. Like, when are we coming for Trevor Lawrence? Like, dude, you cannot lose like this. I mean, you're supposed to be like the chosen one, anointed greatest prospects, and Andrew Luck, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, this is not it. Like, and it can't be up and down. We can't say, oh, you had a great game against the Chargers. No, like, this is really, really, really embarrassing. This is a bad loss.
So Trevor Lawrence got the ultimate pass last year with Urban Meyer, and deservedly so. Urban Meyer was a mess, and it was embarrassing last year, and I think Jacksonville realized that. Now you got Doug Peterson in there, and as soon as Doug Peterson comes in, who has won a Super Bowl with freaking Nick Foles and is a little bit better when it comes to managing quarterbacks and developing them, from what we know, you take an hourglass and you flip it over. And I think the clock is running out a little bit when it comes to that grace period that Trevor Lawrence was gifted by this disaster. And again, deservedly so, but we're approaching midnight, so to speak.
Right.
And I think this is the game, right, where like you've seen Jacksonville this year, and they've been up and down as well. But like for them to go out and beat a Chargers team 38-10, you say to yourself, okay, they're 2-1. They're in a game with the Eagles. If it wasn't raining, who knows how it goes? Right. So like, okay, whatever, like that. But if this
performance makes you think that the rain had a lot to do with that, right?
If you're a team like the Jaguars, who, I give the come up of the week, wants to be the come up of the year, where this organization
that is the big enchilada, right?
Came up. You can't lose this game. You can't lose it 13-6. You can't lose it 2-0 if it came down to that. You have to beat the Texans. You have Trevor Lawrence and they have Davis Mills. You have to win the game. And this game was ugly, and it was something that was like not entertaining for any of the fans of the team. I don't even know if it was entertaining for fans of the teams. So it's disappointing, and we'll see how it's a long season. We'll see how Jacksonville rebounds, but I I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars were spicy to begin the season, and I'm thinking that less and less each week now.
Not spicy at all. My only Texans point on this is Dameon Pierce the offensive rookie of the year? There's not a quarterback that's, kind of taken like Bailey Zappi. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're going to give it to him. Like I think Dameon Pierce through 5 weeks might be the offensive rookie of the year.
It seems like
just quickly,
George
26
Pickens.
carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown in this game. Also had 3 catches for 14 yards.
George Pickens comes to mind as I could see him working his way in because he's starting to get these flashy catches, but I don't know. The team usually needs to be good, and the Steelers and Texans are going to be at the bottom of the AFC. So I don't know what happens there.
I mean, like maybe Romeo Doubs puts together something. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of see that. Maybe Tyler Smith, the Dallas Cowboys left tackle. Wonder, who knows? But all right, let's move on. The Minnesota Vikings held on, outlasted the Chicago Bears there at the very end, 29-22, the final score. Kirk Cousins started this game off something like 16 for 16. I forget exactly what the mark was at this point in time. Finished 32 of 41, 296 yards, a touchdown, 1 pick. Justin Jefferson is all the way back, 13 targets, 12 receptions, 154 yards. But Jalen Reagor was the receptor of Kirk Cousins' lone touchdown pass, which was actually kind of like an Andy Reid vintage shovel pass up forward. Meanwhile, on the ground, Dalvin Cook, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Justin Fields, 47 yards on the ground. Completed 15 passes, which is kind of a high mark for him these days. 208 yards, 1 touchdown. Was kind of putting together a drive at the end to maybe go tie it up before the fumble, which was tough. That Chicago had, but this, I'll say this was kind of an impressive performance by the Bears. I mean, they kept it a little bit close and kind of came back, but ultimately the Vikings are now 4-1 and not getting a lot of love. They're 4-1 and their 1 loss is to the only undefeated team in the NFL.
And I know, and I like the Vikings this year as well. I don't know if they're better than the Eagles. This game to me is exactly what Kirk Cousins does year in and year out, where he has these stretches where he looks like he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and then all of a sudden, like the wheels fall off, and you see frustration in his receivers and whatnot, and then all of a sudden he's back and is able to lead a game-winning drive. The Vikings are forever going to be held up by Kirk Cousins' lack of consistency. And if he can just find that and be consistent, man, he would be an MVP candidate with some of these weapons that he has. But that's what holds me up always about the Vikings and scares me about picking them. But I'm still at that point where I like the Eagles. I think they're the best team in football right now. I feel like
Sure.
I believe that more now that the season has started since before. So my pick was the Vikings. Can the Vikings match up to the Eagles? I think there's a scenario down the road, but I don't think they're there yet. But it does seem like, in my opinion, and RJ, and you can tell me if you agree with it, that it feels like we're headed for the Eagles and the Vikings to match up in the NFC title.
I have said that before. I said that actually leading up to that game, that was a preview of the NFC Championship game and that it was going to happen in Philadelphia. So we're both firmly on record there, a repeat of 2017. The Bears, Matt Eberflus is not in jeopardy or anything like that, but like this is a painful rebuild. Like, but it's not even like a fun, like the Giants are having a fun rebuild. Like this is a really gross and painful one. Let's move on to a team who's kind of sucking at their rebuild. The Detroit Lions had the number 1 offense in the NFL entering week 5. That is not going to be the case entering week 6 because they have a big fat goose egg weighing them down. 29-0. The final score is the New England Patriots shut out the Detroit Lions. A bit of a better defensive performance from the Lions, although going up against Bailey Zappi kind of provides an advantage in that sense. Speaking of Zappi, finished 17 of 21, so more completions than Justin Fields, by the way. 188 yards, a touchdown, did throw a pick. Meanwhile, Jared Goff had a tough day at the office. 19 for 35, 229 yards, did throw a pick, also had a fumble. Jamal Williams only had 56 yards. Like this was, I don't mean to like gloss over the Patriots, but like I'm so like pissed off at the Lions. Like, and look, go read Jeremy Reisman or Pride of Detroit does a great job covering them. But like everybody was so, the Lions are going to be so good. They're going to be cute. No, like this is the same old team. Like you can't lose to the Seahawks the way they did last week and then lose this game to Bailey Zappi. I mean, and then expect to be taken seriously. They're 1-4. Like I'm so sick of giving them extra credit for like being, like weird, like that's like the way they win is weird. Like I'm just, it's exhausting. Like they're not good. It's okay. It doesn't make anybody less of a fan.
And I think in the past, right? And I'm talking about the Brady Belichick Patriots. You see 29-0, you're like, okay, it wasn't our day. We're playing Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and it's this is not your uncle's or daddy's Patriots. He lost 29.
It's not even your Patriots. Like,
this is the rebuilding Zappy Patriots that you're supposed to be this team that is just right there, and your offense can match anything that the opposing defense can do, and you're the number one offense in football. Wait till Jameson Williams gets there, yada yada. And this,
yada.
I think this was milk on hot sauce, right? Like this was like, dude, this is we're curbing this. And the come up of the week, of course, goes to Nick Folk. I mean, this guy was nails in this game. 5 field goals, the star of the game. Also made just 2 extra points that he needed to make, and a disgusting 29-0 win. He by far scored the most points. So kickers are people too.
Do you know what year Nick Folk was drafted?
What year?
Do you know off the top of your head?
1996.
I know he was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in 2007. I mean, Nick Folk's been at this for a long time. Yeah. Good for him. Good for the Patriots, I guess. I mean, like the Patriots aren't going anywhere. This was whatever. Great uniforms though. On Sunday, really enjoyed the throwback effort. All right, let's move on.
I can't believe he was drafted in 96 by the Cowboys.
I locked up the Seattle Seahawks, who were 5.5-point underdogs against the New Orleans Saints. I thought that was dumb. I thought that didn't make any sense. But guess what? The odds makers know best. Shout out to our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. The Saints outlasted the Seahawks 39-22 in what will forever be known as the Taysom Hill game. 9 carries, 112 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. He also threw a touchdown for 22 yards. I don't know that I believe in the Saints. Again, everybody had their thoughts on Peter King making the number 1 seed in the NFC at the end of the year. But I mean, this was fun. This was a cool, game to just kind of like continually have Scott Hansen tell you about on the Red Zone channel.
This is the Taysom Hill game, and I think a lot of people will pick him up on their proverbial fantasy teams this weekend and then be disappointed, because this does happen every so often where he is that type of dynamic, weird, unique player that can have games like this and will a team to victory. I think it's more impressive because we know the Seahawks are better than we thought. If we looked at this, you're talking about Peter King before the season, we just would have assumed the New Orleans Saints would roll in this game and it wouldn't be a question. But I mean, you got Geno Smith on the other side who's playing pretty good ball, right? 268 yards, 3 touchdowns. They were right with them the entire time.
Yeah, he looked really good. I mean, like they lost, but like this, he looks really, really, really looks better than Russell Wilson. I know everybody's making that joke.
The Saints had to battle back and win a game in the fourth quarter. And look, it's Andy Dalton. So again, it's you're buying time right here. But these wins when you're buying time are key for later in the year if you want to make noise in the postseason. And the Saints were able to pull this one out.
Good for you, Saints. Good for you. Seahawks, thanks for these are 2 teams who are going to be fun. Like they're going to keep games interesting and fun all season long. So I'm fine with that. But that's
I love you talk about come up of the year. I'm saying it again. I love the Geno Smith story. Like I'm all in on Geno and seeing if he can really find a way to get his team in the postseason here. It's like that 6 or 7.
Your Hawks.
Hawks.
I'm thinking about making the Jets mine. 40-17, the final score. Their win against the Miami Dolphins. Teddy Bridgewater left the game after the first play. This has been said a lot by a lot of people, but it felt like the NFL feels like the NFL has been overly sensitive, rightly so, when it comes to any sort of concussion-like injury, obviously in the aftermath of what happened to Tua a few weeks ago. Obviously, this involved the Dolphins, so the microscope is a little bit more owned in on them. So Teddy Bridgewater left, so that left Skylar Thompson to come into the game, and lo and behold, not enough against a Jets team that is kind of figuring stuff out. I got to say, Robert Saleh, ever since his I'm keeping the receipts quote, has kind of turned the ship around a little bit, or is at least starting to. Zach Wilson, ho-hum day for him, but welcome to the world and to fantasy relevance. Breece Hall was tackled at the 1 twice, and Michael Carter vultured both of those touchdowns, but Breece Hall did get in at the very end, 97 yards in the score right there. Also had 100 yards receiving, the Jets' leading scorer. They might have a superstar on their hands. Maybe he's offensive rookie of the year.
3rd string quarterback versus a Robert Saleh defense that is finding its identity. That was the story of this game, right?
Hey,
Finally.
wow, no love for Breece Hall from Pete. Wow, sad.
Do I like Breece Hall? Yeah, he's fine. But
Also, the Chase Edmonds stuff is clearly not a real thing. He had 1 carry in this game. Meanwhile, Raheem Mostert had 18 for 113 yards and a score. So if you're keeping tabs on that, I don't know. Like, it's so hard to like evaluate where the Dolphins, because the Jets are like going to be fun. I mean, hey, let's go beat the Packers. Jets.
This game says nothing about the Dolphins. You need at least Bridgewater.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and I think life is only going to get more difficult for the Dolphins. They have the Vikings this coming week, who we think are better than them, obviously. Then the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Yuck. Then they're at Detroit, and you don't know what Lions team you're getting. Then things get a little bit better at Chicago, Cleveland, Houston after the bye. But then, Pete, this is the way the Dolphins finished the season: at San Francisco, at the Chargers, at the Bills, Packers, at New England, then the Jets. I mean, I don't think this is the playoff team that a lot of people thought they were going to be, whether or not Teddy or Tua, whatever comes back, happens.
I'm with you. I don't know. I just think when you have a quarterback and you have Hill and Waddle, you should be able to win enough games to make the postseason. We have to watch Bridgewater here, and I don't think Tua is playing for a bit here, at least a month or so would be my guess. I mean, you never know with these head stuff, and too ugly. So they got to be not only 100% sure, but they got to be 100% sure about being 100% sure before Tua plays again. But you need at least Bridgewater if you're going to make the postseason.
The Buccaneers outlasted the Falcons in an NFC South matchup of 2-2 teams. Tampa now 3-2, Atlanta 2-3, 21-15 the final score. Tom Brady had 351 yards and a touchdown. Leonard Fournette had a big day. The Falcons were just kind of cute and interesting. No Kyle Pitts, and so that made things a little bit more difficult for them. This game's really getting all the attention for the roughing the passer penalty at the very end. It looked very soft. And I do wonder if we see some sort of overreaction next week with the NFL and officials kind of let more things go. It was a really, really awful call. And I mean, if you can't tackle a quarterback like that, I mean, what can you do in today's NFL?
I think this was about the Bucs, getting out to this early lead, and then they let a team hang around. Falcons got to come out a little bit stronger out of the gate. It's weird because the Bucs are 3-2, and when you're 3-2, especially in the NFL where everyone is getting these random losses every week, 3-2 is pretty good. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not look like the Super Bowl version of the Buccaneers. No. And I feel that every week.
It looks so painful. Like not yes, like it's like they're like trying so hard,
pulling teeth at a dentist. Right. Yeah. And but hey, 3-2 is 3-2.
Good for the Bucs, I guess. The Tennessee Titans got to 3-2 after a rough start to this season, so now they're back in the mix. 21-17, the final score. They almost kind of blew it at the very end of the Commanders, who are now 1-4. We talked about them in Rivera. Carson Wentz, shocker here, threw a game-costing interception at the very end of this game. Derrick Henry, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Ryan Tannehill with the Justin Fields stat line of 15 completions. This was just, I mean, kind of the Titans, I think, similar sort of thing, like not quite stepping on the throat of their opponent, but they don't really have the horses to do that anymore. I mean, they hung in and got the win, and that's what matters the most, but they're a really limited team overall.
I don't know if the firing of Matt Rhule is going to mean a DJ Moore sweepstakes, but if it does, the Tennessee Titans should be involved in that. There are a bunch of teams that should be involved in that, because I do feel like they're an A.J. Brown away from maybe being a contender in the AFC. I love a game that comes down to a goal line stand. I love a game that comes down to a goal line stand against Carson Wentz, who really could use a conversion there to prove that he is, as has become popular in the NFL, him, right? Yeah, I'm him. He's not. Well, Carson Wentz is not him.
He is him. Not I am him. That's the line. He is him. All right.
I'm not. I'm not privy. But anyway, goal line stand and the interception to end the game. And I thought Long was going to run all the way for a pick six, which would have put an exclamation point on it, but he ended up sliding, which is fine. I mean, it's probably the smarter play, but I love when the game ends on a pick six that you don't really need, and it's just there's nothing like it, but they didn't do it.
This game on the Washington side, I think the coolest thing was Brian Robinson, the rookie who was shot. That story was horrible and well documented. Made
4 weeks later, he's back.
I mean, very cool to see him out and about and active. Had 9 carries for 22 yards. So that, again, there are not a lot of things to feel good about when it comes to the Washington football team. I know that's not their name, but
WFT.
WFT. All right.
Can I ask
anyway.
you something quick here?
No.
Isn't Heineke better than Wentz?
Yeah.
Am I crazy to think that?
Jeremy Fowler writes, Dan Graziano writes like an overreaction piece at ESPN every Sunday night, Monday morning, where he grades things like whether they are or are not an overreaction. And one of them was that the commander should bench Carson Wentz. And he said, not an overreaction. Like, I agree.
Taylor Heineke almost beat Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Okay,
like one game isn't
that's a stupid way to look at this. But
one game isn't everything, but he's a better quarterback.
Well, he didn't almost beat Tom Brady. He almost beat the Bucs defense, which I think is more impressive because that defense stymied Patrick Mahomes a few weeks later in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's the
offensive line was
Mahomes.
In that game, Mahomes did refuse to lose, but it was tough.
Anyway, he had the greatest sidearm pass and a losing effort in the Super Bowl.
That thing, he looked like Superman.
But it's bad. It was always going to be bad. He's still better than Matt Ryan. Like the Colts still messed up, but this is pretty gross. Okay, 2 games left, and they're big ones.
You hate the Colts so much.
I do. I really do. I can't believe they won on Thursday night. Let's try to wrap this up. The Dallas Cowboys, Pete. Dallas Cowboys 4, and imagine not having 4 wins today on Monday morning, October 10th. Imagine like any team who doesn't have at least 4 wins in this moment sucks. All right.
How do you bench the quarterback? I'm trying to figure it out.
Do not do this. Do not.
How do you do it?
Because he stinks. He limits this offense.
No, I don't know.
You want to ask the question how you bench the quarterback? These are the Cowboys' possessions against the Rams. Just so we're very clear, just so we're on record. All right, all of them: field goal, punt. That 1 touchdown, which was a 57-yard score by Tony Pollard. So kudos to him. Punt. End of half. Field goal. Punt. Field goal. Punt. End of the game.
Let me ask you this. What's Dak's record this year?
Oh my gosh. Anyway, the Dallas Cowboys were impressive. I mean, I picked the Cowboys to win this game because the Rams look so bad. Like the Rams are big time frauds. I mean, the Bengals, I believe in the Bengals more than I do the Rams at this point in time. Talk about the clock strike at midnight. Matthew Stafford looks awful. I mean, it's like this offense is Cooper Kupp and nobody else. Meanwhile, the Cowboys defense is insane. Micah Parsons is insane. DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, Trayvon Diggs, Anthony Brown, Leighton Vander Esch, Malik Hooker, Jaron Kearse. The list goes on and on and on and on. I think that I've said this a lot, Mike McCarthy gets not enough credit. Like what he's doing. They're 4-0 without Dak Prescott. He is 9-7 in games without Dak Prescott as the Cowboys head coach. In games without Tony Romo or Dak Prescott as the full-time head coach, Jason Garrett went 1-13. I mean, like it's not easy. And what he's doing, this is really, really, really impressive right now.
It is, and what is unbelievable at this stage, especially, say we knew about the Dak injury somehow early before the season. We knew about the NFC East, and we were all laughing. The Eagles are the 1st seed, the Cowboys are the 5th seed, and the New York Giants are the 6th seed. It just goes to show, as we try to make these predictions in March, and we try to figure out, okay, who's going to be doing what when you get to this point of the season, a month in, man, you just don't know. You don't know what can happen. And right. I mean, dude, we said, and you're the Cowboys guy. We said on this show after
they were done. They were done.
The season was over, right? The season was over, and you were like, Pete, you're right. At least I know, and I can try to just enjoy whatever as spoiler. And it's like, nah, dude. I mean, by the time Dak gets back, this team might be 6-1, and they could be vying for the top seed in the NFC. I mean, what's wild too is we didn't respect the NFC East, but if there's any game we're looking forward to the most in it, it was Cowboys and Eagles. And now that to me is projecting to be like the game of the year in the NFC, right? Like I'm excited to watch it. And I never thought I would be able to say that.
Next week is football heaven. I mean, we've got Bills Chiefs on the AFC side, Cowboys Eagles as the prime, and that's the afternoon CBS game, right? And then we've got Cowboys Eagles Sunday Night Football. Like it is, I think
I'm actually going to try. I'm actually trying to do the thing where I tape Eagles Cowboys.
Oh, and you're gonna like do your Chiefs post game and then like watch it and not get it spoiled.
And then try to watch Cowboys and Eagles at midnight where I can fast forward through commercials, but it's tough to do it in today's. I mean, it's really hard to do that in today's world. I got to really try to.
Word of advice: check mute your phone, do not disturb mode, because the push notifications is what's going to get you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
very, very quickly, because we have the Eagles game to get to wrap up. The Dallas Cowboys are 4-1. We do not know when Dak Prescott's going to return. My own personal gut feel, not a report or anything, just a gut feel, is it doesn't happen Sunday. But so assume no Cooper Rush, or it's Cooper Rush on Sunday. So at Philly,
Cowboys win. Without a doubt.
But these are their opponents. Like the Cowboys are 4-1, and unlike the other teams in the NFC East, they have not played anybody in the AFC South yet. I mean, so they still get all of those. They've already gotten their first place scheduled games out of the way. They've been playing the Rams and the Bengals and the Bucks. But so Dallas still has they've got Philly twice, but after Philly this coming week, Detroit, who stinks now. Again, you don't know what they're going to be, but still, and they'll be coming off their bye. We've now reached bye weeks, but Detroit, Chicago, then they're on bye. They go to Lambeau. If they go and beat, oh my gosh, if Mike McCarthy goes to Lambeau and beats Aaron Rodgers, I don't know that I'll ever come down. But still, they go to Lambeau, play the Packers, go to Minnesota. We both believe in the Vikings, but from Thanksgiving on, Pete, they get the Giants at home on Thanksgiving, obviously, then the Colts on Sunday Night Football, then the Texans, then at Jacksonville, Philadelphia, at Tennessee, who knows what the situation is there, and then at Washington to end it all. I mean, life's pretty good if you're a Cowboys fan right now. Victory Polo Monday, baby.
It's hard to not be a believer when they've been able to. What did we want when Dak got hurt for the Cowboys? We're like 3-3. 3-3 would be nice, right? They've already clinched that.
The thought was that he was going to be out up to the bye week. And the thought was that maybe they could win 2 of those games, and they had no wins at the time. So they have now. They've already got 4 wins. They've already doubled the best version of what we could have hoped.
Right. And so even if there's a slip up, because let's be honest, I mean, they're not going to win every game with Cooper's Rush. They're probably going to lose next week. But that's you're got a pretty good chance against the Lions.
Agreed.
So 5-1, right? Wouldn't that be or 5 and no 5-1, 5-2. I'm fine with that. I'm saying with Cooper Rush in the interim, that 5-1 is.
Oh, dude, if Cooper Rush,
you would sign up for that 99,000 times out of 9,000.
If Cooper Rush goes, he would be the person who went 4-1 to fix your math. You would be over the moon with that. Anyway,
I'm not a math guy.
Speaking of 5 wins, the Philadelphia Eagles, the only team in the NFL to reach that mark already. There have only been 5 games.
Eagles
5-0 after a 20-17 win. We both think the Cardinals stink, to be very clear here, right? It took the team who we think stinks missing a game-tying field goal at the very end of this for the Eagles to win. I do think this was a weaker performance from the Eagles. And in fact, this was a second half where they had to work. They haven't really had to do that as of late, and credit to them, they won. But this was not the same Eagles team that has been like flexing and dancing and dominating teams up to this point in the season.
Now, like when New England had that perfect regular season and they they so clearly were the powerhouse machine. This is not that, right? Like we all know that Philly is not going to go undefeated by this point. They do have some problems, but I'm with you. The Cardinals stuck around. They actually probably could have won this game at the end. It was really anyone's game in the fourth quarter. And so I'm a little bit, I do think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL right now. I really do. It's hard to argue with that. But I do think that there are angles to defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. They aren't necessarily
which felt impossible like 2 weeks ago. That's what I'm saying. They looked invincible. Now they look, there's an Achilles heel that can be found.
I was a little confused by Hurts's point after the game where he doesn't want to hear that they're 5-0 because no one cared at 2-5, and he said when they were 2-5 last year. So just throw the record out. What? I don't even understand that point.
I think this is a team in a fan base that like thrives on being the underdog, right? So and like even think back to like the preseason. There were all these people like, no, I don't like it. Everybody's so high on the Eagles. No, like I need you to doubt us. So like I think that there's some of that involved here. The Cardinals, meanwhile, just to wrap this game up, are 2-3. They look lost. And an important point here, Pete. All right, I want to make sure that everybody is fully aware of this. Last week saw the debut of 2 new black helmets in the NFL. The New Orleans Saints, and I'm already forgetting who else wore a black helmet last week. Please help me out here. The Commanders. Thank you, Pete. They both lost their games in which they debuted their black helmets last week. This week, the Arizona Cardinals debuted their black helmet. All right. They lost. There are a lot of new black helmets. The Jets have one. I think the Panthers have one. The Eagles themselves have one. All these getting worked into the rotation and into circulation. But right now, the black helmets seem like the kiss of death. The teams are 0-3 in the debuts.
Well,
like we have yet to get a dub in a new black helmet. Obviously, like the Ravens and other
not to
teams
pick
have
up some of the Aaron Rodgers energy, but black is it's a dark color. A lot of times it's associated with evil. We're looking for positivity and light in this world. That Aaron Rodgers is someone that that can provide that. And so I think what you're seeing is a lot of negative energy in the universe with these black helmets, and teams that were going to wear them shouldn't. They should wear the regular helmets.
To be fair, I like the Saints one, and the Commanders one kind of grew on me. The Cardinals one looks weird. I don't know why the like Cardinal has to be like metallic-y looking. So like just not a fan of this. I like the Eagles one.
I never got your take
ones.
on this. What do you make of these teams that don't have any black in their color scheme and then go with the all black?
That's weird. Like
they
you
stretch it.
That's what I'm saying. Like if the Saints want to debut a black helmet, by all means. You know what I mean? Like I guess the Cardinals technically have some. Like the Jets, what are you doing? Like you know what I mean?
I felt this a little bit like this when, and I know the Eagles fans love there, but like the Eagles, black isn't really, they shouldn't really have black uniforms. Or same thing with the 49ers. Like I don't know why the 49ers have those black uniforms either. I'm not a big fan.
100%. That's very well said. So all right, I have won 3 MF double MVPs in a row. That's show history. And the time has come to crown today's winner. Rachel Prevet, please join us. And number one, tell us your biggest takeaway from Sunday's action across the Football League of Nationalists. We will apologize for being long. This is technically Matt Rhule's fault, not ours. But so your biggest takeaway, your thoughts on Matt Rhule, and of course, the MF double MVP. You yourself are eligible if you want to give it to you.
Kyle Barber deserves a little bit of blame here. I mean, my guy really wanted to get some points out about the B.
I'm not going to blame Kyle, just to be clear. I love the Ravens, Rachel. I want that on record. But I will blame Matt Rhule.
I know this game, I feel like it's a takeaway, but at the same time, we got to understand the situation. The Dolphins, because of, the with both quarterbacks and everything that's going on. I thought that was very, very embarrassing, but I guess you can't really knock it but so much because of the circumstances that they're in. But
it's still embarrassing. You can't be that dysfunctional. I agree with you.
Okay. All right. So I'll say it. I think it was embarrassing. I think that was the most embarrassing game. And the Steelers. I think that was very embarrassing as well.
Yeah, I mean, you ran into a monster, but still, like,
Yeah. 3 points.
Don't poop all over yourself. You know what I mean? Just don't poop. That's a very simple thing to ask.
Yeah. And so try not to make excuses for those teams, but those are very, very embarrassing. I loved RJ's take on the Panthers and Matt Rhule and how you were talking about David Pepper and how like this decision should low-key, like he should get some blame for that as well. I thought that was an amazing take. So great job for that. Shout out to Pete for your Mark Andrews. Like you defended your point from earlier this season. You have not been like, sleeping on Mark Andrews. So I thought that was really good for you to defend that point. And also your point on the Packers not even making the postseason. I think that that's a valid point. And so today's MF double MVP award goes to Pete Sweeney.
Let's go, Pete. I'm back. She clearly felt sorry for you, but it's okay. I mean, it still counts. It's a dub. Snaps. Wow. It took you saying something very obvious that Mark Andrews is a very good player. Congratulations.
I mean, I was saying that a year ago. For what it's worth.
Right. He totally sucked a year ago. You're right. Like you said it when it was not obvious at all.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Wow.
I appreciate that.
Pete, your thoughts? Who do you want to thank? The floor is yours.
God, my parents, of course. Pat Mahomes, just the ultimate inspiration.
Patrick, his mother does not like Pat. I thought you would know that as somebody who covers the team.
As you know, RJ, and I said it earlier, I mean, he refuses to lose, and just like I refused to lose the MF double MVP when I showed up to talk about week 5 with you today. So,
Rachel, I would like to award you the MF double MVP over Pete. So
now, why don't you give her the green jacket of the week or the breakfast?
You are wearing green. Yeah. That's like I would say that's like olive green.
We both kind of got a little green going on here.
Oh, Pete, you have like a forest green going on. Rachel's is more fall-ish green. Rachel's dressed for the season. You're not. Hey, Rachel's more fashionable than you, as evidenced by her Instagram. Season. All right, let's get out of here. Rachel, please name a random animal that Pete has to give the sound effect of, and then we're out. And make it a cool, like a really random animal. Last time you said a monkey. That was looking a very adorable animal, but not necessarily random. Like make it a challenge.
A flamingo.
Oh,
I don't just do flamingos have a noise?
I don't know, Pete. The floor is yours. Let's go.
Is that what they do? That has to be, right?